Now, this question states that energy level diagram of the combustion of methane is shown. अगर वैसे पता है combustion is always an exothermic reaction. ठीक है? It's an exothermic reaction. हमेशा energy release होती है. ठीक है? It's always going to release energy. खैर और ये डायग्राम के अंदर भी दिया हुआ है कि reactants have more energy and the products. One second. अच्छा, and the products have lesser energy. इसका मतलब है they must have lost energy. अच्छा, which row gives the equation and energy changes for this reaction? Methane की combustion. Methane क्या होता है? CH4. If you remember alkanes is CnH2n plus 2. Methane means Kn की value is 1. So it's going to be CH4 plus O2 and it's going to produce carbon dioxide and water. Okay, these are the things that are produced when any organic compound burns in oxygen. So this is what's going to be produced. So the correct equation is going to be balancing be correct honi chahiye. So it's probably going to be H2O liquid hota hai. So it's going to be this one. It's going to be D. Or minus sign indicate karta hai exothermic, which means ki energy is being released. Okay, so remember that. Next question. It's about rate of reaction. Okay, like which two diagrams show suitable methods for investigating the rate or speed of the reaction? And he's saying that a liquid X reacts with solid Y to form a gas. So there's a gas being formed. So one way to measure the speed, remember speed kya tha? Speed was if any change is happening. How do you measure the speed of a reaction? Okay, if any change is happening, measure the change with respect to time. Measure ke wo change kitni speed se ho rahi hai. So if a gas is being formed, so you can measure the volume of the gas. For example, option 4. Option 4 hoga कि if a gas is being produced, so you can measure how quickly the gas is being formed. This piston is going to move backwards as gas is going to be formed. Why not 1? Does anyone know what's wrong with 1? Why can't we use 1?
Cotton wool.
ठीक है, because of the cotton wool. क्योंकि gas will not go into the syringe, but instead the gas would just come out of the cotton wool. So you can't measure the volume of the gas in 1. I said the other thing is कि whenever a gas is formed and the gas escapes, the mass decreases. So you can also use option number 2. Okay, you can measure the mass. The balance is used to measure the mass. So gas cotton wool से escape कर रही होगी. ठीक है, it would be going out. तो container की जो mass होगी that would keep on decreasing. So you can measure that change. You can measure how quickly the mass decreases. ठीक है, using this apparatus. So remember, when you measure a rate of reaction or the speed of a reaction, you're measuring how quickly a change is happening. इधर आप क्या measure कर रहे थे कि how quickly volume of gas changes. How quickly it is produced. You can't use this क्योंकि इसमें you're measuring mass. लेकिन problem है कि nothing would be able to escape. So the mass would not change. But there's going to be a gas produced, but the gas would not be able to escape the flask. So the mass would not be changing. And anyways, next one. Which row describes how the energy of collision between particles when concentration and temperature increase? Remember कि concentration से rate of reaction. I told you two things. One is the frequency of collisions. So concentration increase, if you increase concentration, what you're simply doing is that first the particles are far apart, but now they are very close together and they're very concentrated. So this is only what you're doing. So only frequency of collisions increases. They bounce out off of each other more frequently, but nothing happens to the speed of collisions. But when you increase temperature, in temperature the particles become more energetic, so they collide with each other more vigorously. So more effective collisions happen. More effective, more energetic collisions happen. And because they're traveling faster, so they also collide more frequently as well. So he's saying which now describes how the energy of collisions between particles, energy of collisions, concentration, no change. With temperature, the energy of collisions would be higher. Okay, is this clear, Saad? Ahmed, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Next question. There's an equilibrium reaction, and he's saying what the reaction is exothermic. इसका मतलब है the forward reaction is exothermic. TK, he's already said that. And so what how would you increase the yield of the methanol? Methanol is this one. Okay, forward reaction. Exothermic, remember, is favored when you decrease temperature. TK, the Le Chatelier principle rule is that if you decrease temperature, it's always exothermic that is going to be favored. And the other one is pressure का क्या करना है? Pressure आप increase करोगे क्योंकि if you increase pressure तो उसका रूल था कि less gas compress कर रहे हो, less gas would be produced. Less gas mole side. तो less gas mole side कौन सी है इसमें? The less gas mole side is यहाँ पे 1 मोल है gas का and reactants के अंदर there are 3 moles. So less gas is the forward side. So you're going to increase pressure and you're going to decrease temperature. So pressure increase, temperature decrease. So it's going to be option B. Achha, can anyone tell me, Sidra, Anna, can anyone tell me which equation represents a reduction reaction? Like out of all these 4 options, which one is a reduction reaction?
C.
ठीक है, C is correct. Reduction के अंदर gain of electrons होता है, तो Fe3 plus is gaining plus 1 electron, ठीक है? Or whenever something gains electrons, what happens to the charge? Charge decreases. ठीक है? Remember, reduction में the charge reduces. ठीक है? Whenever you gain electrons, you become more negative. अच्छा, which statement or properties of an acid? This ammonium sulfate का reaction. Ammonium salts, remember कि any ammonium salt, ये होते क्या था? Fertilizers होते थे. ठीक है? Ammonium salts were mostly fertilizers. Ammonium salts would react with bases. इनका हमने एक ही reaction किया. They would react with bases to produce salt, water and NH3, ammonia gas. तो इसके अंदर there is no role played by an acid. और अगर इसका हम थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड जाएं तो बेसिस लाइम होता था जो आप सॉइल की एसिडिटी किल करने के लिए यू एडेड लाइम व्हिच वाज कैल्शियम हाइड्रोक्साइड. तो ये हमने पढ़ा था कि फर्टिलाइजर्स लाइक अमोनियम सॉल्ट्स should not be mixed with lime in the soil क्योंकि they're going to react and they're going to produce ammonia which is going to take away the nitrogen. 3 elements चाहिए होते थे प्लांट्स को, नाइट्रोजन, फास्फोरस एंड पोटेशियम, NPK. The ammonium salts were mostly NPK salts, and they should never be mixed with lime, which you add for neutralizing acidic soils. So there's no role of an acid. It's a reaction with bases. And the second one is also incorrect. Turns red litmus paper blue. Acids always turn it red. So both of them are Incorrect. So next one, which row describes whether an amphoteric oxide reacts with acids and bases? Amphoteric word का मतलब ये होता है कि it reacts with both. It reacts with acids and also with bases. दो तीन ऑक्साइड्स हमने पढ़े थे, डेटा शीट के अंदर भी लिखे हुए. एम्फोटेरिक ऑक्साइड्स आर एल्यूमिनियम ऑक्साइड, जो हमने एक्सट्रैक्शन ऑफ एल्यूमिनियम के अंदर भी पढ़ा था. There's zinc oxide which is amphoteric, and there's lead oxide also which is amphoteric. As a silver chloride is insoluble in water and is prepared by precipitation. तो इसमें ये कि how do you, this is ionic precipitation, preparation of salts. Insoluble salt जब भी बनानी होती थी, like AgCl is an insoluble salt. What you would do was you'll take a beaker, and in that beaker, if you want to make AgCl solid, you'll think of two salts. One that contains Ag plus 1 ions, and the other salt should contain Cl minus 1 ions. But shart ye thi, condition ye thi, the salts must be soluble. For example, AgNO3, nitrates are all soluble. NaCl, right? NaCl is obviously soluble. So what happens is because these two compounds were soluble, they would go into the water and they would mix in the water and they would dissociate. Ag plus 1 alag घूम रहा होगा, NO3 minus 1 alag घूम रहा होगा, Cl minus 1 alag घूम रहा होगा, Na plus 1, they're all roaming around. And in this dissociated form, if Ag plus and Cl minus 1 they got together, so they would form this solid precipitate of AgCl because AgCl was insoluble, and they would form this solid. Na and NO3, even if they combine, they form NaNO3, which is very soluble, so it remains part of the solution. So this is what happens in ionic precipitation. Okay, if you want to make AgCl, think of two salts, one containing Ag plus 1, the other one containing Cl minus 1. But whatever the salts are, they should be soluble. So the correct option for this is going to be A. Okay, if you think of barium chloride is soluble. So in the solution, there's going to be barium 2 plus, and you'll have Cl minus 1. So barium chloride is soluble, and silver nitrate is obviously soluble, because all nitrates are soluble. So इसमें, if Ag and Cl ions they combine together, they would form an insoluble AgCl solid. और वो जो barium और nitrate ions होंगे, even if they combine, they remain part of the solution. Is this clear? Is this clear? Ahmed, clear है?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So next is, where in the periodic table is the metallic character of element greatest? So you must know that left or right side, left side, ठीक है? और bottom या top, ये याद रखना bottom के. If you look at the periodic table, तो metals इस side पे होते थे, और non-metals were on the other side. और bottom के ऊपर metallic character होता क्या है? That they lose electrons, right? तो bigger atoms they lose electrons more easily, क्योंकि उनका जो outer electron होता है, that's very far away. So bigger atoms lose electrons very, very easily. And remember that bigger atoms lose electrons easily. So नीचे वाले जो elements होंगे ना, the one more at the bottom, they are the ones that are more metallic. क्योंकि metal का मतलब क्या था? They lose electrons, right? और non-metal का उल्टा याद रखना. Non-metal में याद रखना कि they like to gain electrons, right? That's why they're called non-metals. तो जो top वाले होंगे ना, smaller atoms. क्योंकि bigger atoms, they don't like to lose electrons because they already have so many electrons. Smaller atoms are the ones that have stronger attraction for electrons. Is this clear? Sidra, is this clear? Anna, is this clear?
Yes. Yes.
So next one, rubidium is a group 1 metal, which statement about rubidium is not correct. Group 1 metals का सारा discuss कर लेते हैं कि they are low density, they are extremely reactive, और क्या properties थी? Soft होते हैं, they can be cut with a knife, and they have relatively low melting and boiling points, 100 से कम होते हैं. So low melting points, less than 100, और ये सारी प्रॉपर्टीज होती है, वाइट कंपाउंड्स होते थे. तो यहाँ पे देख लेते हैं कि इट हैज अच्छा वो ये बाद में देख लेते हैं. It has one electron in its outer shell, that's correct. It reacts vigorously with water, that's also correct. It reacts with chlorine to form, तो यही formula होगा rubidium group 1 है +1 Cl is -1. So it's obviously the first one. It has a higher melting point than lithium. ये याद रखना कि smaller atoms always makes stronger bonds. They always make stronger bonds. मतलब metallic lithium जो होगा वो lithium भी +1 होगा, but they would be more tightly packed. ठीक है, like lithium is group 1. It only has 3 electrons. बहुत ही छोटा atom है. So it's going to have all these delocalized electrons, right? Rubidium is much bigger. Rubidium is much bigger in size. So rubidium would have exactly the same metallic lattice, +1, with a single electron that's delocalized. Every rubidium would lose 1 electron, right? So this is lithium, this is a rubidium over here. So the thing is, when you talk about bigger atoms, they're further away from each other. So their attraction is not going to be that strong. Lithium is going to have a lot stronger attraction because they're all very tightly, they're tiny atoms. Charge उनके ऊपर भी +1 है, and the electrons are still the same number of electrons that are delocalized. So the attraction is going to be much stronger because they're closer together. So this is going to be incorrect. Lithium is the one that's going to have a higher melting point. Is this clear? Saad, clear hai?
Yes, sir.
Achha, next one. Which one is the transition metals? 5 properties the transition metals ki melting boiling point were high. Electrical conductivity, they were obviously metals, they were good. Density was also very high, and they would form colored compounds. So S, नहीं उसने multiple पूछे में. S only तो होगा ही होगा, ठीक है, that's done. P and Q, that's definitely not true. ठीक है, it's Q का देख लेते Q. And R is poor conductor, तो वो तो obviously उसकी वजह से निकल गया. ठीक है, इसका melting point बहुत low है. So only S is the only one. P is probably group 1. Okay, it has low density compared to water. अच्छा, which element is a gas that does not form compounds with potassium? कौन इसका आंसर देगा? Easy answer है, क्या होगा? Out of all these elements, which one is not going to form a compound with potassium? Potassium यहाँ पे कहीं है.
B.
ठीक है, B is a noble gas. Noble gases have complete outer shells. अच्छा, next one. What are the products of thermal decomposition of magnesium nitrates? ये हमने decomposition किए थे nitrates के. Any nitrate would decompose to form a metal oxide plus NO2 plus O2. ठीक है, सारे nitrates इसी तरह decompose होते हैं. They break down when you heat them. Group 1 के जो nitrates थे ना, वो थोड़े से exception थे. कि ग्रुप 1 के नाइट्रेट्स जो होते थे वो completely decomposed नहीं होते थे. They would form, like if you have sodium nitrate, it's going to form sodium oxide, sodium nitrite plus O2. So group 1 के nitrate was वो different थे. Here similarly you had hydroxides. उसमें क्या था कि magnesium hydroxides, any hydroxide would simply decompose to form an oxide plus water molecules. Plus water molecules. और फिर इसी तरह you had एक carbonates था. Carbonates की decomposition क्या होती थी? It was if you have a carbonate, it would decompose to form an oxide plus carbon dioxide. तो ये सारी चीजें थी. So the first one, nitrate, ये तो this, it's obviously this one, and the second one is this one. So it's going to be option A. So remember how nitrates decompose, remember how hydroxides decompose, remember how carbonates decompose. और इसके अंदर एक और point था, which was कि more reactive, जितना ज़्यादा reactive होगा ना, more reactive, so it's going to be more difficult to decompose. Like if the metal is more reactive, then more difficult to decompose. It's going to be more difficult to decompose, harder to decompose. जैसा सोडियम का नाइट्रेट, कार्बोनेट एक्सेट्रा बड़ा मुश्किल होता है डिकम्पोज करना बिकॉज इट्स हायर अप इन द रिएक्टिविटी सीरीज. लेकिन अगर सिल्वर का होता तो इट वुड हैव डिकम्पोज वेरी इजीली. नेक्स्ट वन इज व्हिच प्रॉपर्टी इज नॉट कंसिडर्ड अ टिपिकल मेटालिक प्रॉपर्टी. तो टिपिकल मेटालिक प्रॉपर्टी ये तो है, गुड कंडक्टर ऑफ हीट भी है. लो मेल्टिंग पॉइंट इज डेफिनेटली नॉट अ मेटालिक प्रॉपर्टी. मेटल स्ट्रॉन्ग भी होते हैं. As the next one, iron from blast furnace is treated with oxygen and calcium oxide to make steel. Which substances in the iron are removed? तो ऑक्सीजन, क्योंकि आपने ब्लास्ट फर्नेस के अंदर ढेर सारा कोक डाला होता है, तो देयर इज अ मिक्सचर ऑफ आयरन एंड कार्बन. तो बीच में ऑक्सीजन जब आप ब्लास्ट करते हो वो कार्बन को रिमूव करने के लिए, बिकॉज यू डोंट वांट टू मच कार्बन, क्योंकि उससे स्टील जो बनता है वो बड़ा रॉ बनता है. इट्स वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग. यू डोंट वांट, इट डजंट हैव फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी बिकॉज इट्स एन alloy. तो one second, my marker is, एक second. ठीक है. अच्छा, so coming back to the question, oxygen is removed. Oxygen removes carbon, ठीक है. और कैल्शियम ऑक्साइड क्यों डालते थे? कैल्शियम ऑक्साइड, अगर इफ यू रिमेंबर, तो सैंड होती थी, that was an impurity. So calcium oxide would react with sand to form calcium silicate, which was slag, which would float on top of the molten iron. So this was a, calcium oxide was basic and sand was acidic in nature because it's a non-metal oxide. So hence A. ठीक है. Anna, Siddha, is this clear?
Yes.
Yes.
अच्छा, then you have, why is cryolite used in the extraction of aluminium? Cryolite का एक purpose होता था कि it would क्योंकि आपने aluminium को extract करना होता था, the aluminium ions and the aluminium oxide had to be molten, तो melt करने के लिए, तो it would lower the melting point of cryolite. It wasn't economically feasible होता था because otherwise aluminium oxide, alumina had a very high melting point, 2000 होता था. So by adding cryolite, the melting point would drop below 950 or around 950. Next is the diagram shows experiments to investigate how pain affects the rusting of iron. What happens to the water level in tubes P and Q? तो rusting किसके साथ होती है? ऑक्सीजन गैस के साथ. तो अगर तो रस्टिंग होगी तो ऑक्सीजन गैस, अब यहाँ पे रस्टिंग होगी, because the iron is not protected. So what's going to happen is the oxygen gets used up. I mean the Fe, the iron, reacts with oxygen and produces rust, which is Fe2O3. तो ऑक्सीजन यूज अप हो जाएगी तो दिस वाटर लेवल वुड स्टार्ट टू राइज क्योंकि बीच में गैस खत्म हो जाएगी सो इट्स गोइंग टू एक्ट लाइक अ वैक्यूम so in tube P the water level is going to rise but since the iron nails are painted no rusting happens over here and if no rusting happens तो air का content वही रहता है so there's the water level is not going to rise and there's not going to be any change ठीक है Emma, is this clear?
Yes.
अच्छा next one a new planet has been discovered और फिर वो कह रहा है कि it has an atmosphere और atmosphere की वो दी हुई है composition because it has carbon dioxide, nitrogen and oxygen which is kind of the atmosphere is kind of very similar to Earth's क्योंकि Earth में क्या होता है oxygen is 21%, nitrogen is 78% और बाकी 1% होती है मतलब carbon dioxide तो 1% नहीं होती carbon dioxide is the fourth abundant probably gas बाकी जितनी भी remaining gases they're almost 1%. So which gases are present in the atmosphere of the planet in a higher percentage than they are in the Earth's atmosphere? Number one, carbon dioxide, higher percentage, or oxygen be higher percentage. So A is the correct option. Nitrogen, Earth के ऊपर ज़्यादा है, 78%. उस planet के ऊपर it's only 72%. Next one is the gases coming from a car's engine contains oxides of nitrogen. How are these removed? तो catalytic converter होता है, which is you have a catalytic converter which is made out of palladium or platinum. तो exhaust gases के अंदर होता क्या है? Exhaust gases के अंदर unburned hydrocarbons होते हैं, carbon monoxide. फिर fuel भी होता है unburned CXHY, ठीक है, whatever the fuel is, हमें नहीं पता उसका फॉर्मूला क्या है. Octane होता है पेट्रोल, ठीक है. फिर एयर में जो नाइट्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन होता है कार इंजन में हीट अप करके दे वुड फॉर्म ऑक्साइड्स ऑफ नाइट्रोजन जिससे एसिड रेन बनती है. So these are the pollutants. तो what does the catalyst do जो कि कार के एग्जॉस्ट के अंदर लगा होता है? What it does is it converts carbon monoxide to carbon dioxide. Nitrogen oxides they get converted into nitrogen, and unburned hydrocarbons they get converted into carbon dioxide and water molecules. ठीक है, this is what's happening. तो he's saying the gases coming from a car's engine contain oxides of nitrogen. अच्छा खैर उसका कैटालिटिक कन्वर्टर से तो कोई क्वेश्चन ही नहीं था, वो तो बस पूछ रहा था कि ऑक्साइड्स ऑफ नाइट्रोजन कहाँ से आए क्योंकि नाइट्रोजन रिएक्ट्स विद ऑक्सीजन क्योंकि एयर के अंदर कार इंजन इज यूजिंग एयर टू बर्न अप द फ्यूल तो एयर ऑलरेडी कंटेन्स 21% oxygen and nitrogen so in the car engine they heat up and they react so that's where the oxides of nitrogen are coming. Then ammonia is manufactured by a reversible reaction. The forward reaction is exothermic. What is the effect of increasing pressure on the percentage yield and the rate of formation of ammonia? The first thing is pressure increase करोगे, less compress कर रहे हो, less gas moles side would be favored, which is this one क्योंकि यहाँ पे दो molecules हैं और यहाँ पे 4 molecules हैं, ठीक है? Is it clear है ये?
Yes, sir.
तो लेस गैस बनेगी और यील्ड क्या होगी परसेंट यील्ड इंक्रीज होगी क्योंकि फॉरवर्ड रिएक्शन होगा. अच्छा एंड व्हाट अबाउट द रेट ऑफ फॉर्मेशन? प्रेशर जब भी इंक्रीज करते हो प्रेशर इंक्रीज करने का मतलब क्या होता है? नाउ रिमेंबर रेट हैज नथिंग टू डू विद इक्विलिब्रियम. व्हेनेवर यू इंक्रीज प्रेशर तो आप क्या कर रहे होते हो? आप कंप्रेस कर रहे होते हो तो गैस पार्टिकल्स एक दूसरे के ज्यादा करीब करीब आ जाएंगे, ठीक है? प्रेशर इंक्रीज करने का मतलब यही होता है कि आप उसको स्क्वीज कर रहे हो, कंप्रेस कर रहे हो. तो अगर वो करीब करीब होंगे तो मोर frequent collisions would happen. So more frequent collisions are going to take place, they're going to happen. तो rate of reaction क्या होगा? Increase होगा. ठीक है, प्रेशर ज़्यादा रखोगे। एंड रिमेंबर दिस, नेवर मिक्स इक्विलिब्रियम। जहाँ पे वो इक्विलिब्रियम की बात कर रहा है तो यील्ड वगैरह की बात कर रहा होता है। जैसे वो रेट की बात कर रहा है, इज नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट इक्विलिब्रियम, ही इज जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट के व्हाट्स गोइंग टू हैपन टू द स्पीड ऑफ द रिएक्शन। नेक्स्ट वन इज द कॉन्टैक्ट प्रोसेस, इज यूज्ड फॉर द मैन्युफैक्चर ऑफ सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड। तो वो रिवाइज भी कर लेते हैं कि क्या होता था कॉन्टैक्ट प्रोसेस में, कि सल्फर एंड ऑक्सीजन वुड रिएक्ट टू फॉर्म, पहले सल्फर को बर्न करते थे, फिर वो जो सल्फर डाइऑक्साइड प्रोड्यूस होता था उसको दोबारा ऑक्सीजन के साथ रिएक्ट करते थे और ये बड़ी मुश्किल से रिएक्शन होता था और सल्फर ट्राइऑक्साइड प्रोड्यूस होता था। इस रिएक्शन के लिए कंडीशंस होती थी, 450 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड टेम्परेचर होता था, 1 to 2 एटमॉस्फेयर प्रेशर होता था और कैटलिस्ट होता था V2O5। ठीक है, दिस इज अ प्रोसेस दैट यू जस्ट हैव टू रिमेंबर, डेटा शीट में भी लिखा हुआ है। फिर SO3 को लेते थे आप और उसको कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड के अंदर डिसॉल्व करते थे। डायरेक्टली पानी के अंदर ऐड नहीं कर सकते थे क्योंकि एक्सप्लोसिव रिएक्शन होता था, and oleum would be formed, and this oleum H2S2O7 उसको पानी के अंदर मिक्स करके you would dilute it to form 2 molecules of H2SO4. So this was the entire process of the formation of sulfuric acid at the end. So which statement of the process is not correct? Correct. A catalyst of iron is used. So ये definitely not correct है क्योंकि V2O5 is used. Oxygen from the air is, तो oxygen is from the air. Sulfur trioxide dissolves in sulfuric acid to form oleum. वो भी हम कर चुके हैं discuss. The temperature used is 450. That's obviously correct. So सिर्फ पहला वाला is incorrect. And next is lime is used to treat wastewater from a factory. Lime किस लिए use होता था? Calcium. Which substance is removed? Lime is calcium hydroxide. Remember, lime is calcium hydroxide. Limestone जो होता है, that's calcium carbonate. So it's a base. Base किसको remove करती है? Acid को. Soil के अंदर भी आप acid remove करने के लिए, तो there's only one acid given over here, which is sulfuric acid. तो factory के अंदर वो probably sulfuric acid को. Saad, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, next is the diagram shows the separation of petroleum into fractions. तो उसने कहा है कि नाम लिखो इनके। तो डीजल लुब्रिकेटिंग फ्रैक्शन सबसे बॉटम के ऊपर, तो लुब्रिकेटिंग फ्रैक्शन तो बेसिकली बी आंसर होगा। वैक्सेस वगैरह सबसे बॉटम के ऊपर आपको मिलती थी आफ्टर बिटुमेन। तो फिर ऑप्शन नहीं, सॉरी, ऑप्शन बी नहीं, डी होगा। जी वुड बी लुब्रिकेटिंग। पैराफिन एक्स होगा। पैराफिन किस में यूज होता था? ये केरोसिन को पैराफिन कहते हैं। ठीक है, दिस वाज यूज्ड इन एयरप्लेन्स। और डीजल, फिर यहाँ पे डीजल यूज होता था उसमें heavy transportation ships and trucks. So which of the following compound is not an alkane? कौन इसका आंसर करेगा इनमें से? Which one is not an alkane? Anyone? Sidra, do you have any idea? Anna? Is it? So one thing that you will notice is each one has 4 carbon atoms. ठीक है, the first one is 4 carbon atoms. So H कितने होने चाहिए? According to the formula, it's going to be 8, 4 into 2 plus 2, so that's going to be 10. So the first one is an alkane. Second one के पास, second one भी C4H10 है कि नहीं है? CH3 twice है. So that's कितने हो गए? C2H6 हो गया. मतलब C's काउंट कर लो, 2 C's है, 3 C's, 4 C's. तो ये भी C4 है. H कितने हो गए? 3 into 2 is 6, 6 plus 1 is 7, 7 plus 3 is 10. So you're getting the same formula, right? अच्छा इसका क्या आ रहा है 4 कार्बन एंड हाइड्रोजन 3 4 5 5 and 3 8 तो ये C4H8 बन रहा है so that means this is not an alkane ठीक है इसको ड्रॉ करके भी देख लो 4 कार्बन एटम्स है पहले वाले के साथ 3 हाइड्रोजन है so draw 3 हाइड्रोजन सेकेंड वाले के साथ एक हाइड्रोजन है ठीक है look at the second one फिर थर्ड वाले के पास भी there is only one hydrogen and the fourth one is again CH3 so that's 3 hydrogens तो यहाँ पे there must be a double bond ताकि bonds पूरे हो so this C is the one that's not an alkane अच्छा an ester is formed when an alcohol reacts when a carboxylic acid reacts with an alcohol the ester is formed तो वो कह रहे हैं इनमें से कौन सा इससे बनेगा प्रोपेनोइक एसिड और एथेनॉल से तो एस्टर किस तरह बनता था प्रोपेनोइक एसिड दिस इज द कार्बोक्सिलिक एसिड इसके साथ 2 H होंगे देयर वुड बी 3 हाइड्रोजन्स विद इट और अल्कोहल कौन सा एथेनॉल एथेनॉल इज 2 कार्बन एटम्स OH होगा उसके साथ दिस विल हैव 2 हाइड्रोजन्स एंड दिस कार्बन इज गोइंग टू हैव 3 हाइड्रोजन्स क्या होता था बीच में से OH और H रिमूव हो जाते थे तो उनको हम हटा देते हैं and they would link up तो इसको अगर मैं कंप्रेस करके लिखूं इट्स CH3 फिर देयर इज CH2 फिर CO है फिर एक और O आ रहा है आगे फिर CH2 है और फिर CH3 है सो द करेक्ट वन इज गोइंग टू बी D आई थिंक ये दोनों एक ही हैं मतलब लुक ओवर हियर CH3 CH2 C और फिर 2 O C with 2 O's then CH2 and CH3 is this clear Saad Ahmed is this clear
Yes.
तो ठीक है बस एंड में मैं इसी पे ना यहाँ छोड़ूं कि मेक अ फ्यू एस्टर्स propane 2-ol plus methanoic acid everyone make this ester and send me the answer ठीक है that's question number 1 question number 2 is ethanol and methanoic acid so everyone quickly do this right now make these 2 esters ठीक है इनका मैं आंसर का वेट कर रहा हूँ 5 minutes for this